It'd be cool, like my students, to figure out how to get Alpha Utah in my name. Aha.
Oh,
Uh, you can copy and paste it from
nice.
the chat.
Oh, I got
Sound
it.
good.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
All right. We will go ahead and get started, and then if more folks come on in, then we will let them in as they join. So thank you everybody so much for being here for our inaugural award and grant panel with our chapter of the year for 2023 to 2024, Weber State University Alpha and Utah chapter. We will, so kind of a little program for the evening. So we'll go over, I'll put up the award and grant dates so that folks are aware of the ones that are upcoming. We'll do a little introduction of the hosts and panelists, and then we'll get into the Q&A, have a short little refresh break, and then we'll open it up to anybody who has questions or wants to chat with our panelists and kind of have it be like a free-flowing conversation from there. And feel free to put questions in the chat throughout. Our panelists are more than welcome to also answer questions that are in the chat. And if we don't get to the question right away, it'll definitely be answered by the end of the session, no matter what. So, and here are award and grant dates for the spring semester. So our first one is coming up on April 4th, and then everything else is May 2nd. These are all Friday dates, so just so that you have them. Everything is available on our website, and both with the criteria and the applications themselves. And so I will pass it on over to my wonderful co-host Maya to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maya. I recently graduated from college, but when I was in undergrad at DePaul, I was the chapter president of Neuro Psi. And since graduating, I have become a media director. So I work mainly with the West region, and I help to make our interview series on our YouTube and sort of monitor the Instagram accounts. In my role outside of Neurosci, I am currently pre-med. I'm applying to medical school this year, and I do research full-time at WashU School of Medicine in the ophthalmology department.
Well, thank you, Maya. And my name is Tara. I was inducted to the University of Arizona chapter in 2016, and my full-time position is being the National Media Chair for Neurosci. So really glad to have you all here, and let's go ahead and introduce our panelists. So to start off, we have Jackson T. Anderson, who is a junior majoring in psychological science with a minor in neuroscience. and he's the vice president for the Weber State University chapter of Nu Rho Psi. He has numerous research experiences, including being part of the 2023 to 2024 cohort of Weber State University's undergraduate research fellowship, as well as presenting at the 2024 Rocky Mountain Psychological Association Conference. And he was awarded the 2024 Journal of Utah Academy's Best Social Science paper for his paper entitled College Students and Professors' Perceptions of a Student with ADHD Does Gender Matter? In addition to his research, he's been involved as the dedicated peer mentor for the Department of Psychological Science at Weber State and has been involved with WSU's Brain Awareness Week activities, and he plans to attend graduate school after his anticipated graduation in April 2026.
Next, we have Benson Bush. He's a senior majoring in psychological science with a minor in neuroscience, and he is the chapter president for Weber State University's Neurosci chapter. He's currently gathering and analyzing data for his senior thesis and has been a co-author and first author for various research projects. He has presented posters at the Society for Psychophysiological Research Conference, in 2023, the 2024 Snowbird Symposium, and the Rocky Mountain Psychological Association Conference in 2024, the latter of which he was able to raise $1,500 for students to attend. For his research efforts, he's been awarded the Outstanding Student Researcher Award in the College of Social and Behavioral Sciences from the WSU Office of Undergraduate Research, and was awarded the Developing Brain Award from WSU's Neuroscience program in recognition of his promise in the field of neuroscience. In 2024, Bush helped to plan, organize, and execute Weber State University's Brain Awareness Week, where the chapter traveled to different schools and a local children's museum to teach children and teens neuroscience concepts. He organized an event that raised over $2,000 for Primary Children's Miracle Network, a children's hospital network that supports the critically ill and injured children and tries to minimize the financial burden associated with medical care. After graduation, Bush has applied to a clinical psychology PhD programs and hopes to get a PhD in clinical psychology and to continue his research as a professor.
All right, and then our amazing faculty advisor for the Weber State chapter is Dr. Aminda O'Hare. And this past November, we were able to welcome her onto the National Council of Nu Rho Psi as well as our secretary as she was elected. So that's been really awesome to have her as part of the team there as well. She completed her undergraduate degree in psychology at the University of Wyoming and a PhD in experimental psychology with a cognitive neuroscience emphasis at the University of Kansas. So that. At Weber State, she is an associate professor and directs the Cognitive and Affective Psychophysiology and Experimental Science, or CAPES lab, and uses EEG and ERPs to examine emotion and attention interactions with a particular focus on the dual anxiety model and the impacts of mindfulness interventions. She has experience in cross-institutional collaborative research and was a contributing author in Academia from the Inside, Pedagogies for Self and Other by Dr. Maureen Hall and Aubrey Brault, and Creating a Place for Self-Care and Wellbeing in Higher Education by Dr. Norelle Lemon. Dr. O'Hare has been awarded Weber State University's Presidential Excellence Teaching Award and Outstanding Mentor Award for her dedication to teaching, training, engaging, and supporting students. So thank you so much to all of our panelists for being here. And before we jump into the questions, is there any additional things that you'd like to introduce about yourself? Okay, cool. Well, we will go ahead and jump in then. So before we get into the specifics of the programming, we wanted to know what made you decide to pursue psychological science / neuroscience, and what was it about Weber State that drew you there instead of to another institution?
Jackson, do you want to go or do you want me to go?
You can absolutely go first, friend.
So let's see, because question was, oh yeah, no, I remember it's not working. So I actually was drawn to Weber State because I mean, it's cheap school. It's really nice, and also it was the school that I was really confident would accept me with with a GED. Um, so I applied, and I originally was going to elementary education, and then I realized that I do not want my career to be working with children. I love children, but I would rather them be my nieces and nephews, not other people's kids. And so I actually, what turned the tide for me was taking Psych 1010, where I kind of started realizing like, oh wait, actually I really like this. So I switched my major, and then I got interested in neuroscience because Dr. O'Hare is my lab mentor, I guess faculty advisor. Um, and I took her biopsychology class, and she kind of cornered, or she like after the semester, she sent me an email. It was like, "Hey, you should be in my lab." And so that kind of was the beginning snowball that got me really interested in neuroscience.
Cool. I mean, I have kind of a different story. I'm not originally from Utah. I came from California several years ago. I've been here a while and I loved it. Absolutely, I still do. I don't want to leave. But for me, it was genuinely just a passing interest in high school. I came to Weber State as a psychological science major and business administration minor. Um, I didn't know if it was going to work. If I didn't like it, I probably would have went towards like medical lab sciences or zoology or something like that. But since starting there, I absolutely loved it since my first class. Um, I came to Weaver State in a weird cohort. It's called the Fast Start cohort. And so I came in with a ton of other people that were in a similar situation as I was, being either a psych science major or criminal justice major. And so we went through our first year together and we kind of tried to navigate the system together. And it was great. And it was a great introduction for me being a first gen student. And it was awesome. No complaints whatsoever. Um, but I lost my train of thought. Uh, but what made me switch from my minor from business admin to neuroscience was just that I genuinely just was not interested in business whatsoever. And so I just did a random pick and I was like, oh, okay, neuroscience. That sounds cool. And so I went ahead and tried it. And again, I just fell in love with it. And through that same cohort as well, I had a really quick introduction to a lot of the faculty and my junior and senior peers that absolutely helped me navigate the major and like helped me hone down what I was interested in. And it's just been a blast since then. Um, Part of it too, with the neuroscience research, I had a really weird interaction. I think Dr. O'Hare was there. As a college retreat, we went and did an escape room together, and I did an escape room with my research mentor, and who I didn't know very well at the time. And so he kind of cornered me in the elevator and was like, "Hey, I really want you for research." So that's how that went. But beforehand, I was working with another faculty on my initial study. But that's how that went. It's been great.
Cool.
You want me to answer these questions?
Yeah,
Okay.
please.
For it.
I was like, Mike's so old though. Way back when I was in high school, I was always a very science-oriented student. Never had considered psychology as something I'd be into. And then I took psychology my senior year of high school and got exposed to how poorly we understand the brain. And that just really fed into this science part of me that wanted to discover stuff, right? That wanted to be someone who could discover something new. So when I went to undergrad, I shifted to psychology, much to the disappointment of all of my science teachers. I heard from all of them that they couldn't believe I was making that choice. I tried the pre-med stuff for a while, and I made it through cadaver lab, did all the organs, and the day we did the brain, I fainted in cadaver lab. And I kept trying again and again, and I couldn't do it. So I decided I needed to study brains from the outside. Then I was lucky enough that there was an EEG lab at my undergrad, so I got involved in that, did my senior thesis there, and I've been on the neuro track ever since. Always like under the umbrella of psych programs. But really like why I decided to go to like where I went for grad school and where I've gone for everything else. It was about the neuroscience side of the psych programs. Yeah, I chose Weaver. I never thought I wanted to teach either. I clearly didn't like know what I wanted to do as I was developing. I postdoced with the intent of being a research scientist, and even was like interviewing for industry research positions. When I just happened to get an offer at UMass Dartmouth. So I started out as faculty there. And the longer I worked there, the more I realized I was getting all my rewards from student mentoring, not so much from my actual research. So when I decided to go back on the job market, I was actually really intentional in trying to find places that valued student mentoring. As you maybe have gleaned from the students talking, Weber's a teaching-focused university. We're regional, and we're really focused on bringing any student up to a level where they can get a bachelor's degree. So we're an open enrollment institution. Anybody has a shot at Weber. So I just find that really rewarding. Really enjoy working with these students where I feel like I'm having a lot of impact on a societal level here.
Cool.
Awesome. And building off that, what brought each of you to Neuro Psi? How did you find out about it? What made you want to join?
I'll go first this time. So for me, it was actually the new student orientation at Weber, where I was introduced to both our Psychology Honor Society and NeuroSci. And so I legitimately just took a screenshot and I sent it to my parents. I was like, hey, this is my goal. I want to get into these societies. Wish me luck. Here I go. And a lot of my friends are inducted into NeuroSci too, and they've always encouraged me to do my best and reach that goal. And I have. I was inducted last semester actually. And it's super fun. So absolutely, yeah, it's great.
I feel like neuroscience. A lot of my experiences at Weber State has been it's just kind of fallen in my lap. I'm like, all right, yeah, that sounds cool. And this one it did fall in my lap, but in a really early part. Like actually, when I started in Dr. O'Hare's lab, I was lab partners with Rochelle. She was vice president at the time, and she would talk constantly about all the stuff they were doing, and I didn't have the time to go to the events. I was really sad. Um, but it always stuck in my mind, especially because I was in a fraternity before at that time, and I just kind of was ready to move on to more like stuff that was geared towards what I'm currently doing. And then when I was invited to apply for one of I guess like put my name in the hat for oh my gosh, executive position. I was going in for secretary. I jumped at it. I was very excited.
I actually didn't become a neurosci member until I became the director of neuroscience here at Weber State. I previously was involved in Psychi, so the psychology counterpart of neurosci. I did that as an undergrad. Didn't really stay involved in grad school, but was the Psychi advisor at UMass Dartmouth. So when I came to Weber, I started out as a Psychi advisor here, but became director of neuroscience my first year here. And that's when I learned that I needed to run NeuroSci chapter. And so step one was becoming a member. So I joined as soon as I started becoming the faculty advisor for this chapter. They're a wonderful group. We have a very tight-knit group of neuroscience students that run around in a pack together. You can find them at any time because there's always like at least 5 of them wandering around the building.
Nice. So when you started as the faculty advisor, there was already an established chapter there.
Yes, yeah, our chapter I think was established back in 2014, maybe,
Okay.
before I came here. So yeah, so it was existing. The director that hired me went somewhere else, so I became director really fast and stepped into the role.
Nice, nice. At least you didn't have to step into a new role and start the whole thing all at the same time.
I mean, it definitely helped having experience being a psych advisor for a long time. So I already knew how to run an induction ceremony and all that stuff.
Sure, sure. Nice. Well, cool. I'm like glad to hear that there's like a really tight-knit group and they've kind of like passed their knowledge down and got other students interested through that. That's really exciting. So to kind of jump into a little bit more about your neurosci chapter, what are some of the activities that you all hold, run, whether it's regularly or kind of the bigger ones that happen, however you want to talk about them?
I know the biggest one we do, and it's mentioned a couple times, is Brain Awareness Week, where it's a chance for us neuroscience students to like work on, I guess, disseminating science knowledge in a way that is approachable to people that don't have this background knowledge that we do. And in this case, we're talking with kids and we're teaching them like we would bring like illusion posters. We did like a taste or flavor stations, what we call it, where we'd give them jelly beans and they have to like plug their nose, close their eyes, and try and guess the flavor. And just stuff like that, where we're engaging them in their senses and we're talking to them about the importance of wearing their helmets and stuff like that. And so we'd go to elementary schools, we went to high schools, and then oh gosh, we have a children's museum nearby that we set up booths at, and we'll do all the activities we have set up there.
This is starting for us on Monday. We go on spring break tomorrow, yay.
Oh, nice.
So our students always go out into area schools during spring break, which is always the week before official Brain Awareness Week, but of course it's when they have time during the day to go do these programs in schools. And then we have a regional foundation grant to partner with this museum, where for one evening we take them over, and one of the Title I elementary schools in town gets free admission for their kids and family. And we have 7 activity stations set up throughout the museum. They get like a little passport that tells them where to go. And so they do all those. And then the following Saturday, we take over for the whole day. And that's open for the community. It's sheer chaos. Last year, we had over 800 people show up. So we have that coming up in 2 weeks.
Very
That's great.
cool. So, is it just you all that are running that, or do you have other folks in the community that are partnered with you to take on 800 folks who are attending, or how does that work?
It's all Weber people, but we open up volunteering to more than just the neuroscience program. So I try to give them first crack. But then a lot of the psychology faculty will give extra credit for students who volunteer. Our pre-med club volunteers. This year, our anthropology club is really into like comparative neuroscience. So that club is volunteering and coming to help. So yeah, we pull in as many as we need. That museum, we need like a minimum of 14 students at all times. So we have to ask for a lot of help.
Yeah, I'm sure. That's really cool.
Yeah, and a quick plug for the anthropology club is because my really good friend Brennan, he was originally in neuroscience and the neurosci executive board. Then he was invited to join the anthropology club, so he switched over to that one. And so he's been the one that's been driving force behind it, and we're
Kind of
yeah.
too. Cool.
And then we got like an event we're doing a bunch of cool like hominid skulls and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, our main goal is trying to promote more club activity in our college and in general. And the past several years, we've seen kind of a dip down in club activity, so we're just trying to make efforts to increase that and get students interested and involved.
Sure.
It's been great so far. I feel like it's been pretty successful.
Yeah, these guys have done other just more casual social club events like trivia nights. We have a de-stress center in the gym that has like massage chairs, and so they always put together an event where they go over there and just take advantage of those things. What else do you
Nice.
guys do? Um,
We did the lab tours as well.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
forgot
that was
about
one
that
of the
one.
big ones. We took some students and we toured our different neuroscience labs and kind of told them about what cool things that we do in our college. And yeah.
And we also,
I
as
think
a
we also
program, we have a monthly lecture series where we bring in either a neuroscience researcher or someone from industry who's doing like neurotech or something like that. We're lucky where we're situated in Utah, we have a lot of access to neurotech. They like it here. So the club always helps out with those events as well, or the chapter. So when we bring in a speaker, we try to do one-on-one lunches so students can really pick their brain before the talk. So it's usually chapter members that are kind of showing up and hanging out with our speakers during the day.
Very cool.
Yeah. So, what is the sort of general process for putting an event together in your chapter? What does sort of each person's role look like in that? And have you ever like run into moments where you maybe have to prioritize certain ideas over others, or how do you sort of put your event schedule together and make things happen?
I know that usually our process is that like because I tried to change things up this when I became president because I tried to have like a meeting before school started so that we have all the things, all the ideas planned out, and then we can kind of plan each event as it comes up. So like event every like I think it was 2 weeks. I can't remember. But essentially the middle week between when we had the event would be a planning week so that we have plenty of time to do stuff before it would happen. Um, so I tried to change that process. It actually worked really well. Because I think the time before when I was secretary, it was kind of a mad scramble to try and get something put together. And in that time, it was definitely a lot of prioritizing of like, okay, what can we actually get done in this short amount of time? How can we get more people to come, et cetera, et cetera.
I only step in when I feel like they need a good shove. I try to let the chapter officers kind of run the club and use me as like support and a resource. So yeah, I kind of let them do their thing.
Which is
Yeah,
so nice.
it's great. I mean, we always try to do like local volunteer stuff like on our campus. Usually we do a lot of the health fairs and stuff with our health college on at Weber State. Um, in terms of other volunteer activities, usually we have some parts of the community reach out to us through our email, which has been like when I first got on, I was very shocked about how active it was in the community. Um, in fact, we have two upcoming volunteer opportunities after Brain Awareness Week, during and after, that we're pretty excited for. Um, it it is really hard to pin one role on one person when, like we said earlier, we're a really tight-knit group, so we always try to communicate as much as possible and we try to share everybody's burdens together. So that's part of what makes it great too, is because we're so tight-knit and we don't have any problems asking like, hey, I'm having trouble this week and I need help doing this thing that we were assigned last meeting, and just stuff like that.
I'd say something I've been reflecting on as a challenge well, we're just past it, but like early spring semester, inevitably with senior officers, you end up with officers that are interviewing for grad school, and you just kind of forget that that has to be their priority. And then it's always a scramble to kind of pick up those roles. So I've been thinking about that of like, how can we better prepare for when our officers get those grad school interviews? Because yeah, last year our president interviewed a lot and it was hard getting Brain Awareness Week put together. And we had an officer gone a bit this year too.
Yeah, it's always tough trying to fit in those ongoing responsibilities with everyone's very busy schedules, especially towards the end of the year. That was definitely something we ran into with my chapter. Um, are there any other challenges that come up sort of cyclically in the same way that, like graduating seniors being busy will affect your chapter? Are there other challenges that you guys have to overcome? And how do you sort of handle those as a group when things like that come up?
A really good question. Um, Man, it's really hard, especially because, like, I mean, especially I feel that I put a lot of pressure on myself because, especially being president, like, I have a lot more responsibility. And so sometimes it was like, especially during the first part of the semester, I tried taking a lot on myself, and then I was like, hey, this next semester I need to really like try to not do nearly as much. Um, so I think from a leadership perspective, it's delegating as much as possible. So in that way, it's relying more on my people that are elected to do their thing. Um, but I think that tends to be a pretty cyclical issue for sure. Like, I mean, that definitely happened. And yeah, it's not necessarily power struggle. It's just more of just people are assuming they can do the job better, I think, from my experience, like, especially last year. But accepting the fact that other people have strengths too is kind of the key part with being leader.
I mean, I wouldn't say this is a cyclical issue, but generally, the people that are on the executive team for our club are absolute superstars and they want to do everything all at once. So trying to manage all of that, the undergraduate research and other club affiliations and in addition to coursework, I feel like is something that we all kind of struggle with on our team, but I feel like we're getting better at it, at least from what I've seen.
Yeah, so would you like want to talk about that more? Like what are some things that help you all find that balance for yourselves and with each other and kind of being able to still get things done and also just make sure that you're not burning out and that nobody else is as well. What does that look like for you?
Uh,
Well, I'm on
eh,
campus a lot. Sorry, Benson.
oh, you're fine.
Yeah. I'm on campus a lot since I work in our psychology department. So I usually have a lot of time to try to manage and organize what I need to do for that week, the day, whatever it may be. That's just the one of the natural benefits of being a student worker is that they do give you plenty of time to manage other things. Because the pivotal point is that, you're a student as well, right? And so that it's been super helpful working in the psychology department for sure. Um, in terms of burnout, since I also like to do everything all at once, um, in terms of burnout, I try not to do too much after I get home because I'm consistently working on different things while I'm on campus, and I try not to do too much over the weekend. But that's when I usually delegate to organizing with my peers for research or club activities or whatever it may be. I'm constantly bothering Benson over the phone, and I always feel awful about it. Um, but aside from that, we have a stress center, and it's really great. I've gone a couple times. Um, but outside of that, in the couple semesters lately, I've been trying to take more time to just enjoy what I like doing, whether it be reading or just casually reading about research that I'm interested in or things like that. And that's helped me a lot. I can't speak for everybody else though.
I will say kudos to you're such a good student for reading research outside of that. I'm so bad about that.
I'm just a
But
nerd.
you fair. Look where you are now. But um I know as a group, I think that one of the things that we've found that helps is like we had a Discord, but then we just decided that's really hard because some people don't really like have notifications on for that, or et cetera, et cetera. So we shifted to group chat. And that tends to be the quickest way to get information out and stuff like that. And then the next issue was people, I guess, responding to said group chat. And so that was just me kind of poking, prodding, like, hey, make sure you guys respond, or at least somewhat like send me an emoji that you guys read this so I know what's going on. Oh, I had another thing. I genuinely can't remember. I'm so sorry. But
Oh, that's okay.
Worries. My thing is I refuse to put university email on my phone. So when I leave my office, okay, they have my cell phone, so they can get me if they want to, but most people can't unless I intentionally log into a computer somewhere. And I find that's very useful for maintaining boundaries. I don't really want to tell my students to do that though, because it's hard enough to get them to respond to emails.
Sure,
Fair point.
sure. Yeah, so how many folks do you have on your board? Like what does your board kind of look like?
yeah, I know. So there's me as president, and then we did have a vice president, but she graduated last fall, which is great for her. And then we have Jackson as secretary, and my friend Lindsay is our treasurer. And then we have Michael Young as our social media coordinator, and also volunteer coordinator, stuff like that. And because we've been one person short, it's been a little bit harder for sure. And so I guess it's just where, again, we kind of share a lot of duties. But for the most part, like I know Lindsay, she does stick with a lot more of the maintaining finances, stuff like that. And Michael does a really good job with social media presence. Like he's been posting really consistently, which has not happened in past little bit, which has been really nice. And then I try my best to delegate and to try and make sure people are doing stuff, but I just help whenever I can.
Jackson has really moved into the vice president role for us this semester. We knew this was going to happen when our vice president got elected last year, that she was going to be a fall graduate, and we were just like, we're just going to work through it. And we've done all right.
I'd say so.
Jackson is a blessing, so.
Yeah. We used to have a volunteer coordinator position as well. That would be really busy for this like Brain Awareness Week time. But we just kind of got rid of that one last year because it seemed like that person only really had stuff to do like seasonally. And it takes so many people to make that all work that it's really pretty equally distributed across all of us getting everything ready for Brain Awareness Week. So we just got rid of that position this year.
So over the course of like when y'all have been members, besides the Children's Museum Brain Awareness Week event, do you kind of switch up the schools that you go to or switch up the activities that you're doing for your Brain Awareness Week, or is it kind of pretty consistent throughout the years?
In terms of the activities that we do, I would say it's fairly consistent. Just because we do need to train volunteers every year in order to present to elementary, middle school, high schoolers on the knowledge that we're presenting. In terms of the schools, we do reach out to basically every elementary, middle school, high school, at least as much as we can, in the Weber, Davis, and Ogden districts. And so we let the school decide whether or not if they would like to participate. We don't really want to be super intrusive into their school year and kind of throw that onto them like, hey, we want to come talk to your students for a while in a good portion of their day. And so we do try to be mindful of that. But aside from that, I would say it's pretty consistent. And we do try to contact the same schools every year. And if they get back to us, then that's amazing. And we're so happy to establish a flourishing relationship with them. But if not, then we don't take it in stride.
Kind of interesting to watch the cycles. Like last year, almost every high school in the area said yes. And so we did a ton of high school biology, which is kind of unusual. Maybe occasionally one high school responds. This year, no high schools responded, all elementary schools. So
Mhm.
it's just kind of like whatever K through 12 schools are paying attention to when we reach out and start organizing, but are willing to like make room in their schedules and let us come in.
And I know we've had ideas thrown around for new activities. Like I know recently we tried to apply to the Dana Foundation grant so that we can get some more money for continuing what we're doing. And we wanted to do a big thing with the Dana Foundation, because they're the ones that have hosted the Brain Awareness Week, or they started it, I believe. Um, and so a big focus this year was neuroscience in the community. And a big part of that was aging populations, like see how we can incorporate that type of stuff. And there's actually a couple different ones too, like neuroscience and law. And wasn't there neuroscience in the environment too, Dr. O'Hare?
I don't
think.
know if that was part of Dana or not.
I don't think so. But we wanted to focus in on neuroscience and aging populations. And so we wanted to do an activity where we would go to, like, we'd shift our focus from elementary schools to assisted living centers and stuff like that, where we can maybe go in and talk about healthy aging, what the aging process actually looks like, and then how movement can help a lot. We wanted to reach out to a professor on campus that has actually done that before, where he went to assisted living centers. Um, and unfortunately, it's just kind of one of those things where it fell to the wayside just because aforementioned busyness with being a senior and us just being in a lot of different stuff, because we're all a big group of nerds. So
Well, what has been your favorite moment or event during your time in neurosci, and what's one thing that you really want to see happen while you're still on the exec board?
I mean, for me personally, it's every semester we have these graduation and induction ceremonies for our chapter. Those are always my favorite because I love seeing my friends get inducted into NeuroSci and getting inducted into the executive board for our clubs. And just it's just a fun time just to talk to our professors and our peers and their families, and it's great, honestly. It's definitely my favorite thing.
Those are my favorite too, Jackson.
Ah.
I will definitely third that, because it's really fun to see people when they go and get inducted, especially like my first time going to the induction. I didn't really know very many people yet. I was still very new, and so it was a little bit like, and everybody's very welcoming and stuff like that. I chatted with a bunch of people. But and then the times after that, I definitely second what Jackson was saying, is that it's really fun seeing friends, especially with us, because whenever we have new people who are like, come join us. Um, and it's just really fun seeing that how much they've grown and how much they've started getting attached to the stuff that we love as well. And so it's just great.
And I get to meet all your moms.
That's nice. So y'all invite families and stuff to your inductions. Oh, so nice.
Yeah, it's really a nice event.
Yeah, that's really sweet. Oh. So to kind of switch gears, since you all are busy individuals, we kind of wanted to get a little bit more into the activities that you do outside of neurosci. So, what research do you do, and how did you get into it?
Jackson, you start.
Okay, cool. So originally, I worked with one of our psychology faculty, Dr. Catherine Sperry, on college students' perception or gendered perceptions of ADHD. And I worked on that in my first semester at Weber. I was very fortunate, and it was a blast. It was a very big group at first, but as we owned up the project a little bit more, we people came and graduated, and it was great, and it was sad to see them go, but I'm really glad, and I'm sure they're doing great. Um, but I got into that through our psychi and psychology club meetings on campus, and it's basically what Benson said, like, hey, come join us and do this thing with us, freshman student. And so that's how I got into research to begin with. But as I've continued my journey at Weaver State, I've done more research on physiological stress and gene expression in honeybees in relation to learning and ethanol tolerance and that fun stuff. And that's what we primarily do in our lab. And it's great. It's very fun. I've had such a blast working on these projects with everybody, and I'm still thinking of my senior thesis right now. So, and I'm anticipated to start getting that going in the next fall semester. But yeah, no, it's been super fun.
And then I'm in Dr. O'Hare's lab. Do you want to talk about it, or do you want me to?
You can talk about your work.
Okay, yeah. So in Dr. O'Hare's labs, the CAPES lab, we use EEG, which is electroencephalography. And what we do is it's again the lab is really focused on dual anxiety and mindfulness. Currently, I'm doing my senior thesis. I'm actually gathering data for it, where we're using ERPs, or event-related potentials, which is essentially like a time-locked. I guess we just get like a general waveform from a specific area of the brain, and then an ERP is where X amount of milliseconds after a stimulus is shown, you see either a bump or a dip. And that bump or dip will usually get bigger or smaller depending on what we're looking at. And for mine, I'm looking at attention and dual anxiety, and specifically attention during to threatening words. And so we're using ERPs that are capturing contralateral attention, which are measuring back in the occipital lobe, or I guess over the occipital lobe. And so if they're paying more attention to the left field or the right field of view, then we'll get alternating ERPs. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm just trying to see how, gosh, I still need to get my elevator pitch down. But I'm looking at how the differences in trait anxiety, so that's the anxious arousal and anxious apprehension, play in whether or not they're attending to threatening information, mildly threatening information, or neutral. And then on top of that, I've been helping develop a new methodology with Dr. O'Hare. It's more of a data analysis thing. It's called oscillatory analysis, which if you guys have heard of brain, like the different brain waves, like the alpha, beta, gamma, delta, stuff like that. Essentially, it's a really complicated waveform. So I can't remember what field of math that is. But sine waves, I'm assuming that would be then, I don't know. Anyways, you're separating it. Sorry, I'm trying to explain too much. Anyways, bottom line is it's essentially looking at a ratio of brain waves to see, because there's people that are higher in the specific ratio tend to be more anxious, and they're controlled more by emotions, so their attention is controlled by emotion, or it's more top-down control where they have exerted control over attention.
Now, because I'm trained in cognitive neuroscience, I've always done event-related potentials for all of my research, but Benson got really interested in this oscillatory stuff. So it's new for me, new for my lab. I've never done like basic oscillatory analyses. So we're learning how to do that together. But yeah, everything in my lab looks at anxiety and attention in some way, shape, or form. And then I'm trained in mindfulness-based stress reduction interventions. So when I have resources and time, I like to look at how that kind of experience changes those relationships in people's brains. Actually collaborating with Jackson's research mentor right now, doing a mindfulness intervention, and we're getting saliva samples and looking at stress hormone levels in students pre-post mindfulness practices.
Cool. And Dr. O'Hare actually contributed to our gratitude guide that went out in December as well, based on the work that she did in her lab. So
I just got accepted for a talk at Rocky Mountain Psych Association.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Benson's also doing a talk on his thesis at the conference.
Very cool. I don't want to get into it because I feel like I'll talk for so long, but I did my thesis on brain-to-brain synchrony and looked into electrophysiology a lot as well. So I think it's such a cool topic. And I did an interview with Dr. Chuck Anderson over at Colorado State, who's also looking into like EEG technology for brain-body interfaces. And it's such an interesting way of looking into perception and social behavior. I really love sort of EEG and its potential. So very cool project. I'm excited to see what comes from your thesis.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually did look into that professor, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
He's so cool. We have a video on the YouTube if you're interested in watching. It was a great combo.
I definitely will.
So kind of building off what your current research interests are, what are you all most excited about in the field of neuroscience, and whether that is sort of a far off like fantasy or something that you're working on or seeing emerging in the field right now that you're really excited about?
Oh man. I was just looking at graduate schools not too long ago, this week. So I'm super excited for anything comparative physiology, molecular genetics, learning, neuroendocrinology. I pretty really cool labs that I've seen across the mountain region of the US. I've seen like bear labs and people that work with octopus and like cognitive uh, stuff. I don't know a whole lot about that area, so I apologize. That's what I'm surmounting that too, but it's really, really cool stuff. But I love comparative stuff and the neuroendocrinology behind everything. Um, yeah, no, it's super, super cool. I also really like research in aging populations and that niche as well. A lot of the research, gosh, tongue-tied. A lot of the research that I'm looking at right now is how stress impacts aging populations. I just did an article presentation in my lab for it recently. So that's just what I'm super excited about and what I'm like really hoping to learn a lot more about as time goes on and as I look more into graduate programs and other labs. But yeah, it's
I think for me personally, I'm really excited because a lot of what my thesis is also based on is, especially because Dr. O'Hare's like research is primarily on dual anxiety. That was kind of birthed from the RDoC, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. It's the research domain criteria. It's essentially the National Institute for Mental Health. They um, are doing a really big push for a lot of the research on, or I guess for neuroscience to kind of help contribute to research on the specific symptoms of different psychopathology, like from the DSM-5 and stuff like that. And so that way we have actual psychophysiological stuff, or I guess physiological evidence for these psychological conditions. And it's like based on like, cellular, um, there's a lot of different domains that they're looking at, like molecular, cellular, and they're just trying to get a really big, solid base for why these are legit things and like how we should target them for individualized therapies and stuff like that.
Drinking my Kool-Aid well, Benson. And the whole RDoc approach is kind of counter to the DSM approach to mental health. And it emphasizes individualized medicine and trying to get this really dimensional description of each individual and their symptomology and not worry about assigning like a diagnostic category to it. It's years and years in the making before it's actually how we practice medicine, but it is pretty exciting to see an emphasis towards that direction. It's maybe not like shiny new. They made RDoc in 2010, but it takes a long time to fill in the all the different units of analysis that they're interested in. So that research is all happening.
Yeah, for sure. When I was in undergrad, I was really, really interested in genomics, and they had just kind of started to introduce this idea of individualized medicine and individualized treatments, and I thought that was like super interesting.
I agree. So cool. That's what brought me to the lab I'm in right now. We do molecular genetics, and I think personalized medicine, especially in age-related diseases and oncology, is a huge emerging field, and very exciting.
So to kind of, since we're kind of approaching the end of our scheduled interview time, kind of ended out a little bit by if you have any advice that you would give to students trying to either get more involved with their Nu Rho Psi chapter or on the exec board of their Nu Rho Psi chapter, or just looking to get into research or new neuroscientists in general, what advice would you have for them?
Man, I talk to students all the time, and I'm so happy I get to be able to do that because I get to connect with so many different people from so many different backgrounds, and I usually give them the same advice. Uh, Never be afraid to ask a question, partly because more often than not, probably somebody else has the same question, but if it's completely new territory for them, then no question is a dumb question. In terms of students trying to get involved with their neurosci chapters, just reach out. It's as simple as that. Again, ask that question. Don't be afraid. I mean, at our college, it's just a matter of throwing your name into our election, right? We don't discriminate against people who have been here a month versus like 3 to 4 years, right? We're pretty open to any student running and getting involved, and I feel like I made a lot of friends that way as well. Um, in terms of getting into research, I'm sure professors are always wanting to get to talk about their research. The other day, I saw my research mentor talk to a student about the research that we're doing in our lab, and he sounded so ecstatic about it. And so I strongly encourage students to take advantage of professors' office hours and just reach out. It is as simple as that.
Advice I have is just be around. Just I mean, literally just even get like especially for us because we're such a tight knit group, we're always roaming the halls like Dr. O'Hare says. So if you talk to one of us, we'll just we'll probably eventually be like, hey, we always hang up in the tutoring room. You should just come by and. Um, and so it's just usually I think even just like a passing. Oh, that seems interesting, especially just because we table every now and then, and we have a bunch of us are talking about it all the time. It's just a really good way to find out about it, first of all, but then also if you put a face to your interest, I guess, then you're also way more likely to take part in these things and to eventually get into leadership positions, stuff like that.
Yeah, from the faculty perspective, the students that are here all the time and that all of us know when we have to nominate students for awards and scholarships and recognition, like those are the students that are on the top of our minds all the time. So it pays dividends to just be involved in your department and have relationships with your faculty. I can think of awards that both these two have gotten because they're the first names that come up when we're in department meetings talking about this stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really good advice. Being around and just asking the question. Something that I've been like kind of learning a little bit more about in more tangible terms is like this space between not knowing and knowing. It's not a binary, it's a continuum. So like so yeah, I don't know. I thought that was really interesting and kind of like gave me a new perspective. That if I had going into undergrad, I might have approached things just a smidge bit differently. But cool. Well, thank you so much for your time and for being here. And we'll conclude the official interview portion here, but we'll be here to chat and talk and all of that more. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you very
We're
much.
super excited.
So we'll kind of open it up a little bit. So if there's anything that y'all want to talk about, or Kent, if you have any questions or want to chat, like feel free to jump in. We're all open here. And if not, that's okay too. I don't want to like, if there's nothing that you want to say, I don't want to pull you out. Oh.